but in Quest Rogue specifically, you were never really doing it before turn like 6 or 7 anyway.
That's right.
Because of the nature of how you set up your win condition, which is often the result of the quest. So again, probably the lightest deck or class right now that's not receiving too many nerfs for now. But we'll see how it pays off as we dive into our match number 3 of the day with Frenetic on the Hunter and Leta on that Quest Rogue. I will say though, in my experience at least, Hunter still does well versus Rogue, but there are always those like tempo heavy draws, right, which can push Rogue ahead of anyone, honestly.
Yeah, just going back to the Battlemaster nerf, I think the one thing it can still impact is quite often you got lethal after your Scab's turn by going like dropping Wind Fury, but then also having the mana to like sap one of your opponent's minions and play the weapon right on 7 mana or something like that, and then push lethal. Whereas obviously that's cutting to a little bit now, by the 1 extra cost of Battlemaster. But you are absolutely right in that you're never really playing a curve where you're prohibited from playing Battlemaster with the nerf with Rogue.
So far though, Frenetic getting off to a solid start. The Fellhound's just jumping on the board nice and early, ready to push a ton of damage. If Frenetic can maybe force this through. Okay, nice. The good one. 5 to face.
I think I've ever really commented on this, but I love that Leta just has a solitary Northshire cleric on a shelf, like in a like presentation box behind him, like it's full, like pour one out for the fallen homies, right, of priest players. Just never forget your roots, praise the Northshire cleric.
I think, is he not doing it as prayer sort of thing, like the prophecy that one day it shall return and save Leta? We'll have to see what the future brings, but for now. Interesting turn here, actually. Again, you see the arguably buffed part of the Golkar come into play that Leta will have to put the dagger in if he wants to kill it off completely.
Yep. Does mean this 5-4 arguably gets to stick around though, which is a big deal. Obviously, again, just goes to show the power of Golkar if it sticks, that, you know, Leta is taking the smaller minion off the board this turn, it seems like. Could have been rewarded with the sap here, right? The sap gizmo, in which case that would have been a far superior way of doing it, but does not get the good outcome.
It would have been, but I think he would have skipped it anyway.
I could see that.
Because this is just a ton of card draw, of course, with the Greyheart Sage, and then he could always just sap it next turn, and it's still a nightmare to replay, right? There's 1 turn delayed before it can be played anyway, then there's 2 turns dormant. You effectively remove it.
Ooh, that's a brutal draw for Frenetic. Ruins his curve here because he would have wanted to play the War Song, pick up the other Rhino so he could buff it, right? Being the important thing, having already had that 1 Rhino in hand. Now he just has to play this game with 2 unbuffed Rhinos in hand, which is not a great look.
Tricky turn here from Leta. Can't activate this SI Assassin. But one thing I think I would like to see this turn is the Undercover Mole. Because that's a card with Wind Fury that can be pretty funny. So there is an option there where it could just end up pushing only 4 damage, of course, but generating a good amount of cards for Leta if the game looks like it's going in that direction.
What should I order?
Do you think he starts with Passage?
He could do. I mean, generally with this deck, when you go fishing with Passage, you want to have, you know, assassins very cheap. You want to have big informants that you can draw, right? And neither of those things are really true right now. So I'd struggle to see what the big payoff for a Secret Passage would be this turn.
Now Leta going to get the good news. Frenetic just committing. No, this trading stuff that people talk about.
Imagine.
Yeah, all to the face, big setup. Effectively a lethal setup, even though there's some trades going to happen on board. But see, now this is the easiest mole into explosive trap.
Mole into explosive trap. I love it. Yeah.
The wrong trade.
Care to make a wager, friend?
He just didn't believe. You just didn't tell the mole what you wanted by making the right trade. Then it would have given you an explosive trap. But the gizmo is going to be here. Mulligan does get a lot of tempo back though with the SI7 assassin here. We'll have to continue trading. Well, I say that, but I say that too quickly, and I very quickly realise that I say that too quickly, because if Leta pushes face for 5 this turn, and then Frenetic does not trade, he then has 18 more plus 6 more, which is, what, 24? So he'll be 1 off by merit of not being able to dagger, therefore Battlemaster nerf the nuts.
Yeah, strictly bad. I think he still does it though.
Okay.
Because if he trades, he's just going to get hero powered down, right? It's still too slow. Like Frenetic, before the attack went through, of course, was on 30. Like, how does he catch up? Like, I just don't think he does.
Yeah. Make sure I've counted this correctly. So that'll be 18 on the left, 21, 24. Yeah, and just does not have the mana to fit in the dagger, right? Yeah. Gives him Shadow Step out as a lethal draw if Frenetic goes all face.
Yeah, that's true. And he can secret passage for it.
No, because then he won't have the mana to replay the SI, right?
Oh no, I meant sorry, I meant like if he goes all face, he can play Battlemaster, right? And then go for Shadow Step the minion that's Wind Furied, and then get Wind Fury in the next minion.
Oh, that's very true. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. It's a good catch.
Well, that's the plan, right? After seeing Barrack, he knows he's yeah, he knows he's dead, right?
100%, yeah.
He knows he's dead from hand. Oh,
aim shot. Aim shot, quick shot, hero power. He wouldn't have had it there because Frenetic did trade 1 minion though, right? So he'd still be 1 short, even with Shadow Stepping away and Wind Furying the Foxy Fraud as well, I think.
Oh, was he off? Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, so that would be 18 plus 6 from the Foxy Fraud,
You're
also
right,
getting
you're
Wind
right.
Fury, so that would still be 24. Yeah. So because Frenetic traded 1 minion, he actually cut into the outs, which is good recognition from Frenetic.
Yep.
Because as we can see, he just still has the 9 he needs from hand next turn. So he just had all his bases covered. Very nicely played.
Yep, completely right there.
Target eliminated.
And Frenetic just knows, right? He knows the numbers. He's played it on face hunter. He's ready to go as long as no crazy shenanigans happen. But I don't even know what they could be at this point.
Yeah, maybe Scabs could have cheated enough mana to be able to find some lethal outs that I'm not thinking of there, but not entirely sure.
There you go. Frenetic knows.
Little wipe at the brow, he knows. Aim shot, hero power, quick shot. Leta knows as well. There's no other outcome here. He always dies.
Yeah, and that's one of the drawbacks of this rogue is that it's... I'm not going to go as far as to say it's very fair because it can do some pretty powerful things with Shadow Steps and obviously the Assassins and stuff, but it's predictable, right? Like, you very much know what the limits your opponent has, so then you can react to them. As much as Frenetic did then, like you said, with the trade, he knows there's almost no way that extra damage can be found to make up that total, whereas if you're against Mage, you're probably dead 3 turns ago. It is that kind of craziness that can happen. So it's one of the drawbacks of the deck, and that means Leta, the Quest Rogue, first time on stream in Europe this week at least, so he's going to take a loss, which means he has his Mage and his Priest left over. And I'm still... I'll get used to this as we go, more weeks throughout Grandmasters, but I still have to keep reminding myself every single series, last hero standing, because we only just did Conquest, we're over to last hero standing now, and that means Frenetic's still got his Hunter to go with, and honestly, already, it's looking pretty good.
What I thought you were going to say is I'm going to get used to this over the course of this meta in GM, is that when I see Priest in someone's lineup, it's an aggro deck, and it's not
I mean, that's also true, yeah.
Because that's the reality here for Leta, and I'm looking at his lineup, and perceiving at least a little bit of a weakness to Face Hunter overall, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that's a reasonable matchup for Face Hunter. I think this is a very reasonable matchup for Face Hunter as well, because it's one of the very few matchups where Void Touched Attendant is not just strictly the nuts in your deck, because it can actually punish you going back the other way as well. And then his remaining deck is Mage, which we've discussed ad nauseum, right, throughout the broadcast of how bad that matchup is against the Face Hunter.
Yeah, I think we've seen Mage versus Hunter, twice today in a total of 2 minutes total game time, and that's all you need to really know. So yeah, like I said, with Frenetic winning that game 1, just glancing at it, he's got to be feeling very confident with the rest of the lineup now. We'll have to see how it pans out. There are strong draws from Shadow Priest, of course. However much some people might have strong opinions either way on the deck, is a reason people bring it. But, as you mentioned, there are a lot of downsides, which is, can it outrace a Hunter, is the big question.
Yeah, certainly when you have like a reasonable curve of minions that you can play of reasonable size, you have a chance of racing back against Face Hunter, I suppose. You know, you can really go to extremes and just take what's already kind of a sketchy looking deck, take all of the minions out of it and replace them with 0 mana 1/1s, which is something that some people have done for some reason. But Leta does just have a solid curve available, right? And I think as much as in most matchups we'd be talking about how Void Touched Attendant is, you know, the card you mull for, the card you want to play early, I think against Face Hunter it's more go first and foremost, and draw Imprisoned Homunculus, right? Like that's probably your goal for winning the game, is get that huge tempo minion down nice and early. It's kind of weird calling a dormant minion a tempo minion, but in the same way that Imprisoned Gannarg was for Rush Warrior, for example, where it's a minion that represents a ton of stats for not very much mana, and then it also comes online as a base on your turn. So in Rush Warrior perspective, that meant you could get your Tent Trashers into play because it was discounted by a demon or something like that. In Priest terms, that means that's a base on your board for Kultaran Chaplain to come down, or for Wriggling Horror to come down, right? And you have this guaranteed minion to be able to buff and curve out quite nicely. So I would expect quite an aggressive mulligan for an Imprisoned Homunculus here for Leta.
I do think that is going to be important. The buffs as well that Priest can bring to the table is going to be pretty huge against Hunter. And I will say, looking at, you know, we've talked, you touched on the Dark Master Ganling, there's Kazakus here, there's the Void Shard that was in the initial list and some people are still playing. And for me, I actually, not that I've put a million hours into various forms of aggro priest, but for me, like the Kazakus feels like it does the job for the deck that it really wants to do, right? You've got options of either continuing the curve with big minions, it can get card draw, it can get removal in these close aggro mirrors. Like that feels like for me that best 4-slot option. So we'll see if it pays off for Leta here.
He got the going first part down, and I was going to ask the question, is this good enough? Tour guide into Panthera, it's pretty good, but is it good enough? Leta in the end says yes, but again, I can't stress enough the importance of Priest going first in this matchup.
Yeah, it is important, but Frenetic's hand is also pretty good. He has a lot of good options here, nice curve options, especially with that adorable infestation. Got to coin out the Felmore and get the earlier outcome, even if a Homunculus came down now. Obviously the Felmore gets to push or trade smaller minions first.
Second Tour Guide's actually huge here because the Felmore was the perfect minion to respond to this start with, right? Because as good as Initiate Coin Adorable Infestation usually is, it's a miserable play into a 0 mana hero power with a Tour Guide on the board, right? So I think Frenetic very smartly went with the Coin Felmore and now feels like he'll get paid off with the Initiate a little bit more. Unfortunately for Frenetic, we can see on the other side the second Tour Guide is going to have a lot to say about this situation.
Really tricky still as well, because Aim Shot, the fact that it can go into minions, it's not a raw face spell, is going to be pretty huge.
I just love the phrasing of that. It can go into minions. I did double check that before I said it because I've never done it in my life.
Wait, you aimed that card? Just an auto phase. In all seriousness, though, I think the fight for the board, as is the case often in these minion-based aggro matchups, is super important. And in a weird way, I think Hunter draws cards better than Shadow Priest, which is a strange thing to say. So I think if Frenetic can just push Leta off the board, it's gonna be a real big struggle to get back on. True aim crescent as well is a big deal.
Really aggressive push this turn though from Leta. We'll see what the Fillmore decides to do. He does now have the True Aim Crescent as well to work with here that he can use to take multiple trades this turn with the Fillmore, which is very nice.
I want to say it's Barak.
Kind of feeling the Barak as well, yeah.
Because as I was talking about it, I feel like this is not a aggro or a health war, it's a resource war, right? And Barak is so good. He has a solid turn 5 in multiple ways, actually, depending on what he wants to chuck out there. Okay, I'm really surprised. And he's got the Warsong Wrangler with the True Aim Crescent next turn to make some trades as well. Like, I'm really shocked at the lack of Barak this turn. Well, the lack of picking it, obviously not playing it.
Probably be crucial for Frenetic just how much work this True Aim Crescent can do to fight back against the board state. Obviously allows him to engineer nice value trades, even with the Warsong Wrangler that's probably coming down next turn. And particularly, I think this is where his head is at, right? He's going to try and save some charges of this weapon for the buffed Rhino that he's going to get off the Warsong Wrangler. So he's saying, I don't need card draw, I need damage to support all this Rhino damage that I'm going to be getting through this game. And that's where his quick shot pick comes into things.
Hungry, aren't ya?
And a pickup chooses to take out the 2-3 here instead of the Divine Shielded 2-1.
I'm a little bit surprised there.
You like that decision?
Not really, because he would kill the Divine Shield Panthera here, and if the 2-3 traded into the 3-2, it dies. So there's like a win-win situation, whereas this Panthera is going to survive if the trade happens.
There is no light.
There's also the other world, right, where if, say, Leta plays fairly high health minions this turn, trades off his tour guide and like hero powers down the remaining Warsong Wrangler, there actually isn't that good of a Rhino target on the board because the Divine Shield on the other side, you'd have to hit it first, weirdly enough, with the True Aim and then send the Rhino down. It's a weird choice, I think.
I mean, here you can still go Rhino into the 2-1 and hit the Benedictus, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if he just goes... He hits the... What if he just Rhinos into the 2-1 and passes? Is that crazy?
Like, why? What does that achieve? Why is that better than clearing the 5-6?
Yeah, I guess it takes 5 either way, right?
Yeah, because you end up taking that damage in both worlds, right, is the problem. Oh, the scary card.
And look at the health differences. 22 for Leta here. Frenetic on 13, and this is like Frenetic's got all the damage, but maybe not even the time at this point.
Yeah, and this is where potentially that Kolkar nerf could come into play. Although a 1-mana spell off the top could still do a lot of work if Frenetic does need to play defensively next turn, allowing him to go Kolkar quick shot and a 1-mana spell.
Do you just like Void Touched and Dragonmaw hero power here?
Oh, you've got to be damn sure if you're playing Void Touch on this board.
I am.
Okay, well then let's do it.
I'm just thinking, like, what do they then kill? Because there's a buff from the Dragonmaw. The Dragonmaw needs to die because it keeps buffing stuff. You've got 3 minions on board, and you deal, what, 5 damage that turn to face? Sure. Do you really think Frenetic can rush you, win that race with 6 mana?
Leta agrees with you. The Void Touch is hitting the board.
Oh, he doesn't because he can't play the Maw. Yeah, I think the Maw.
Okay, fair enough.
I just think there's like minimum 2 must-kill targets, and you push 5 damage. Like, it's a huge deal.
Clears up now though. The quick shot coming into play. Or actually, doesn't anymore, right? Oh no, it's fine. You just attack first, and then you make the trade after the fact. Yeah, that's fine.
Leta now does have Panthera though for a little bit more card draw. Maybe now is the time for Homunculus, depending on what this draw is off the top. Oh, that seems good.
Pretty good, yeah.
Just play it with Void Touched.
Muzzle their
Yeah, Leta really holding on to this Void Touch until the last moment.
Mm-hmm. Reminder, everyone, it can hit minions. He knows he's dead to Void Touched Attendant. That's the hesitation this turn, right? Because it would be 4+3/+3 from the hero power if all of these minions stick. Does make this a little bit of a tricky decision, I think. Oh, okay, the left one can only go face, but the one on the right, that one's allowed to hit minions.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Looks like this one is slipping away from Frenetic, though.
Really, it's just too much mana, right? To do it. Even without the Neophyte effect, it's still just a little bit too much mana to squeeze the whole turn in how he wants it. And catch up 19 health. His hero power does 4 now, so Leta effectively on 15.
I want a quick shot the minion. Do you hate me?
No,
Frenetic agrees.
No, I was going to suggest the same. Because I think he needs to buy more than one turn, right?
Exactly, yeah. Now Leta says, there's no way that your hand has enough resources to punish me for this Void Touch Attendant anymore, so into play it comes. 3 damage goes face from the hero power. Does mean that this is now a 5 damage hero power on the other side for Frenetic, but I don't think it's going to end up mattering. Absolutely not.
7. Yeah. It was just a little bit too much there for Frenetic, and honestly, I think it's fair to say that that Rhino draw really put him in hot water there, right? He just couldn't get the second Rhino going with the buff, and also arguably was a draw down, right?
Wait, wasn't that a completely different game?
Wait, wasn't that this game?
I think that was last game, wasn't it?
It's all melding into one.
I feel like you're talking. Talking about the road game. He won. That's how much nonsense you're spouting right now.
There's too many hunters. I apologise. That was last game. I'm sorry. Here though, it was just too much. And Leta, I think, as you can see right there with the board, the way it looked in the end, just about had enough. And weirdly, Benedictus was actually a good thing for him, right? Even though that's normally seen as like the worst card to draw in the deck.
Drawing patches, yeah. Okay, dear viewers, allow someone that was actually paying attention to break down what actually happened that game. So first off, Leta went first, which, you know, I'm not trying to diminish the agency of the play, but going first in basically any board-based aggro matchup like that is going to be a good thing. And I was talking about how the quality of the opening hand is going to matter a lot, and I would mulligan very aggressively for specific cards. I was talking about Homunculus in that position, but actually the tour guides there ended up being massive, right? Because those first 2 0-mana hero powers, the first one activating the Panthera, which kept him nice and high on resources, and then the second one killing the Initiate that Frenetic thought was safe. I think if those 2 0-mana hero powers weren't there, if Leta even had to pay 2 for them, or they just didn't exist at all and he was just -4 damage in terms of board control or whatever else, I think Frenetic would have run away with that game very quickly, but the double tour guide opener was very, very powerful for Leta overall.
And also, honestly, that combined with the fact that you look at Kolkar's kind of nerfed and buffed because it's gained the stats, it's become a spider tank. It allows or it reduces the way you can actually deal with those wide, annoying little boards. It's one thing Hunter used to kind of excel at in the aggro matchups now.
Yeah.
But now it feels so delayed. You need to save cards, and the problem is if you're waiting on turn 4 or 3 with the coin, it means that your turn 2 is probably super weak as well, right? Because you're not playing spells on turn 2, so you have them for Kolkar. It's kind of weird, and it's one of the reasons why I understand some of the players cutting Kolkar, which might sound like a bit of a surprise. But we are going to dive into game 3, and I promise I won't make up things that happened in this game. Leta on the bomb on the Priest, and Frenetic going to be on this Quest Shaman. And honestly, like I said earlier, I'm still waiting for Quest Shaman to really impress me. It feels like, or at least from my experience, I just want to see a few Elementals and Doomhammer chucked into these Shaman lists, and that's going to get some more work done, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, Raven, do you remember in that TICE series we just watched where he pinged himself in his own face and then Oskaka ended up going on to win the World Championship? That was insane. What a thing to have happened this morning.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
Can't wait till you mess up Sol, because honestly... Here though already... Go on.
A secret. I never mess up.
That's just not true. Leta going to be diving onto some minions nice and early here, and Frenetic's going to have to answer them pretty quick, or he's just going to get overran. And again, outside of having exactly Perpetual Flame, this matchup feels very difficult for the Shaman. It's kind of shown that. I think you were there, right, when I was practicing with TJ this matchup, and it was just either Perpetual Flame or not was really the story of the game.
Yeah, I will say it was very different, though, because TJ was playing that Gandling version that I was alluding to earlier, which means basically all of his minions are just very, very tiny tokens. Or even if he gets to the stage where they're all 4/4s, you know, Raven, you were looking for, like, Parappa the Zapper plus Perpetual Flame, right, to be able to clear that board up a lot of the time. Whereas in this case, you can see there's a Homunculus, there's a 1/4. Like, yes, these are cards that are available to the version of the deck as well, but it's a little bit easier with, you know, Dragonmore Overseer as well, let's say, to create some boards that are resilient to those Perpetual Flames. There's a Spider Tank. This is just what happens now.
Even better, it's buff.
Yeah, true.
Ooh. Now, yeah, you can play the Dragonmore hero power double trade the 1 attacks and just have a huge Homunculus.
Not bad.
Doesn't die to Slugger, right?
Could also not do that and just go all face because you've got a 2/5 taunt in the way of the 4/4 anyway. Also do a third option, which is
welcome
either
to
of
Hearthstone
those
casting, naming legal plays.
Play-by-play Hearthstone casting, not even once.
No littering.
Attack Frenetic is going to go for the Canal Slug, and that will finish up the quest as well, so not really punish him there. The nice little bloom in between.
That's the fear, right? It's why I was kind of on board with your initial suggestion, is that the Homunculus Canal Slogger outcome is not one that's favourable for you as the priest player, right? Most of the time, it's just such a good value trade. It's just the way that they line up. It comes online on the perfect turn for Slogger to come down and punish you.
Well, options here. Did pick the 5-drop.
Heals.
Not the impactful options, I imagine. Leta wanted the deal 3.
Deal 3 would have been great. There are circumstances where +2/+2 is the absolute nuts for this deck, but it's when you've generally had a very aggressive start with a bunch of 1/1s, and you have Raised Dead in your hand and all that kind of stuff.
In Worlds without Canal Slugger.
Yes, very true.
Job's done.
Still though, like I said, it's one of the reasons why I like the Kazakus, because it just gives the priest options that I feel it always needs around turn 5, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you see the Presta OTK I linked you the other day?
Wait, no? Well,
no? Well, it was Demon Hunter playing it, yeah.
Yeah.
And he got the Caldara Drake with the cheap hero power.
Nice.
The other 2/3, and just spam the hero power button.
Love to see it.
Yeah, I really did.
Really interesting pick from Frenetic, though. He took by far the weakest tempo minion, just betting on the fact that it sticks to the board, which it does always against Priest. Well, it does always against no Void Shard Priest, unless your opponent had specifically Rush Golem, right, to interact with it. So it's a very calculated risk from Frenetic in the end.
No
Frenetic not want to go Dungeoneer this turn?
He's just farming. Like, he's 3 minions to 0 against.
I guess so.
Against Priest at this point, like the game's just kind of over, right? No reason to get too greedy.
Just the way you phrased it, I think a lot of people aren't fans of combo decks at the moment and are a little bit upset. Well, let's bring Hearthstone back to basics. Frenetic has 3 minions. Leta has none. He is winning the game.
Yeah, I mean, screenshot this and put it on Twitter. Game's over on turn 6. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, this is the weakness of the Priest, though. It definitely feels close to an all-in deck. You're making all-in plays like every single game, right? Because if you lose control of that board, it is very difficult to get back. And this is even with Leta having Kazakus on 4 and getting a golem that drew more cards. Like, imagine if he was 2 cards down. Yeah, he would have got a better golem, arguably, but still, he would have been in a reasonably rough spot. But this Gadget Zan is the work right now, isn't it?
It really is, yeah.
Just put wait, that's the problem. Put Gadget Zan in Quest Shaman. That'll fix it. Frenetic gets the victory and moves up 2-1 over Leta.
Yeah, clean performance. You see the little fist bump there from Frenetic. He'll be delighted to be able to reverse that one. As I said, felt like Face Hunter had sweep potential. On the flip side of that, it felt like even though Priest did win the matchup against Face Hunter, which, you know, to be clear, I think if Priest goes first against Face Hunter, it's fine. It's just, I think Face Hunter going first is even more fine. So when you add those numbers together, probably comes out as a favourable for the Face Hunter. But, you know, the reverse of that is that after Leta won that game with Shadow Priest, he probably didn't feel like Shadow Priest was going to go on to sweep the series, right? Because of the counter queue of Quest Shaman, which is a strong matchup coming back the other way. But I do think that was a rough spot for Frenetic. He was out of cards, he was behind on tempo, and, you know, valuing the out of cards part of that over the behind on tempo part was a really inspired decision, because he passed up on 2 very good tempo minions, you know, a Boulder Fist Ogre and the Dragonmore Skystalker, which are both great 6-drops, just because to take the bet of sticking an Auctioneer, which, as I said, I think sticks in every world except Rush Golem from Frenetic. So I think that's really, really smart. Oh, yeah, true. Yeah, Fireheart could definitely do some work. Wait, what? Hang on. Against the Priest? What do you mean?
Sure. I'm on a streak. Leta, moving on.
I almost agreed with you.
Well, there you go. You never mess up subtle. It was a trap all along.
Gaslighted by your bad casting. What are you doing?
Leta, moving on with his Quest Mage, though, is bringing Arcanologist, which is, again, I think we're seeing more and more mages play with minions, right? And playing with a variety of different minions. Last week we saw One Thieves. This week we've obviously seen the Gadget Zan list again, but now we're seeing these secret drawing minions here from Leta. And are you a fan of this, getting the Ice Barrier more consistently?
It's, I mean, I understand the theory of it. It certainly has upsides. Like, I haven't experimented with it enough to really have a strong opinion on it, but it certainly, like, makes logical sense. I understand what he's going for in that position.
Do you think it's like based on just expecting the aggro as well? So not only are you getting Ice Barrier, but you're getting the 2-3, so it's to help fighting those aggro matchups, because we've seen a lot of aggro today, as you guys might have noticed.
And I think also it's another card to mulligan for, right? And it's a card that fills the gap because you can't flow on 2 anymore. And so you have this Arcanologist to play on 2, which can fight back against aggro. And we've already talked a lot about how important Ice Barrier is early against Face Hunter. If you have 15 health by the time your Ice Barrier comes into play, forget about it. Like, you're still going to lose in that position. So the fact that allows you to play the curve of 2 into 3 and potentially, you know, fight back against some Face Hunter aggro minions in that position, it's a smart choice. I could see it working. I just haven't really had the chance to get a good feel for it myself to really have a strong opinion on it.
It's definitely something that came out of nowhere. At least when I was looking at the deck list, it's not something I've ran into on ladder or anything. Leta now is just going to get rid of 1 Fire Sale. He does have a second one in hand, so he can be a little bit more liberal with the first one. Frenetic just insta-slamming the Canal Slogger. Because you nearly said it earlier, you're now making me trip up on the name of the card as well.
It's called Instructor Fireheart.
This console never makes mistakes.
Questline 1 completed for Leta.
I will say, though, already, Frenetic's hand's not looking great, is it?
Nope. This is just kind of the deck. It's a great anti-Shadow Priest hand again, right? If that was the tools he needed to be able to fight back, clear the board a couple of times, pump up those charge calls, and then drop a big minion that Priest wouldn't be able to answer. But that's why decks have matchups, and that's why Last Hero Standing becomes interesting, right? Because this is very clearly an anti-aggro deck that you're playing in your lineup for a specific purpose from Frenetic, and the combo decks in the meta will prey upon it.
Also the huge drawback here of Frenetic losing with that Hunter, right? Because Hunter would be in prime position. If he grabbed the win there, he just has to farm Mage with it. Would have been absolutely fantastic. But him losing that out of LHS...
Oh, yeah. That's the juice.
Seems synergistic.
It does.
Yeah, with the Incanter's Flow nerf, yes, the deck's obviously still playable and still fairly strong. That's why everyone's bringing it. But you can already see in turns like this that it does just narrow what's possible quite a lot, right? Spending that extra mana for it means that Leta can't really flow and have as strong a turn as he could have with all these like low mana costed options.
Yeah, my experience with post-nerf Mage, the second one is surprisingly punishing as well, because you're kind of conditioned at this point that the second flow you draw is kind of an afterthought, right? It costs 1 before the nerf, so you're like, oh cool, 1 mana Incanter's Flow, done, right? What's the rest of my turn? Now when you draw Incanter's Flow even after the first one, your second one costs 2, so it's actually a significant impact on your turn overall. So yeah, it's definitely having a factor, but I think as multiple other people have said, it's not a nerf that has deleted the deck, right, quite clearly. Right. The strategy is very much still intact.
Frenetic needs something big. Okay, it's a great looking card art, but it's probably not good enough.
No. Was on lock, he's just going to drop charge
middle.
again.
I talked about this the other day. This card should just be in people's decks.
These cards should be in your decks if you hate Mage as much as Raven does and are willing to concede every other matchup in order to beat this.
Every other matchup. Imagine playing Celestial Druid against this card. You've got no chance.
Fine! What? The turn where you cast a bunch of spells, your opponent dies. What do you mean?
You'd have a really big board. Just in case they mess up.
Yeah.
Also, honestly, isn't that bad versus Warlock either.
Okay, Raven.
I wonder.
It is insane right now, though. That I will not dispute.
So painful to watch.
Whole turn, Fireball ping plus a 4/3 on the other side of the board. Disgusting.
It's the fact that you fireball it, or Leta's fireballed it there, and then you watch itself go yoink, just out of range. You're like, oh no, it needs something else.
It's like when you're playing Battlegrounds and you attack into an Imp Mummer and kill it, but it spawns a Mal'Ganis, and then it just gets the health back and the Imp Mummer stays alive. Oh, come on!
No littering.
Frenetic just dropping down Canal Slugger. It's just throwing out what he can get. Like I talked about landslides earlier today that with this aggressive meta feel like reasonable cards to include in the list, but obviously going against Mage, it's the exact opposite of what you want. I mean, if he queued this into Priest with this draw, the Priest would already be dead. He'd have no minions.
Yep. You're not wrong. It seemed Frenetic largely going through the motions at this point. Like he would have to draw perfectly, like runner for 3 turns at this point to likely even have a chance. That's if there's even 3 turns left in this game at this point.
What to do?
Is he gonna go? Okay. I think either way. Okay, is he going somewhere different here? I thought either way, Leta would just fire sale this and just say, look how kind of bad these last few turns have been. Like he played an overcharge cell for a 4-drop. Like that's never a good sign for you from your opponent, right? Did wonder if he was going to fire sale and just say, well, actually, my follow-up turns after this are going to be very strong.
Yeah, I think he just decided in the long run that was just a little bit too much mana to designate. This gives him kind of a kill switch button, right? If he plays Dawn Grasp next turn, if for some reason there's a huge board generated following up after that, he knows he can smack that down with Fire Sale very easily. But crucially, this allowed him to draw cards and complete quest and functionally do the same thing, right? He left 5 power on board, but he also played an Ice Barrier that your play didn't play, so like net health-wise, he's still in a very comfortable position.
Yeah, more or less in the same boat, but a little bit farther ahead. Most importantly, though, Frenetic just drew Bloom. Absolutely nothingness.
Mm-hmm.
We hunger for vengeance.
Chooses to use up his double discount on the Blood Mage before he goes fishing anymore. No reason to triple discount a Blood Mage, so he cashes that out first and then plays the additional studies. Pick this board apart however he likes now. Like I said, again, Fire Sale is just a catch-all solution to the problem, but you know, he's holding on to that for as long as he possibly can, just to avoid any potential disaster scenarios.
I have proven myself.
Which is reasonable.
There's additional cycle later in the game, right? Like, he could even be thinking of using it offensively to go digging for more ignites.
Yeah, honestly now though. Oh, it looks like he's going to go for it. It makes sense, yeah. Because I was going to say, at this point, with Springwater and a corrupted ring toss, defensively he's got it covered, right? He can draw plenty of cards, he has that ring toss, and yeah, get out the game there, Frenetic. Unfortunate, and a really rough draw for him there, as Leta, outside of the first few turns, could pretty much do what he wanted for the majority of that game, right? The draws were that bad, and again, that's the sacrifice you make when you add more and more of these defensive tools in the deck like Quest Shaman, which I feel isn't a very smoothly transitioning deck anyway, before you put double landslide in. So it just compounds the issue, right? And yes, this doesn't happen every game. I'm not saying Frenetic completely whiffed on deck building, but this opens up these kinds of scenarios that you can fall prey to.
Yeah, it is part of my problem with Quest Shaman as a deck in terms of overall power level. Like, no questions at how effectively it preys upon board-based decks, right? And how well it can deal with Shadow Priest and potentially Face Hunter as well in certain situations. My problem is that the deck as a whole does seem to be a little bit confused. And as you said, you're talking about transitioning, and I do think that's something that the deck has to do in a lot of matchups, where it has all these kind of anti-aggro based removal cards early on. But then there's a very small section of the deck, right, with Charge Call being doubled up and so on later in the game. If you've drawn those early and you haven't had any other options and you've had to play those for 3 and 4 drops like Frenetic had in that situation, your deck can feel like it's just drawing air a lot of the time in my experience. So I think the build of Quest Shaman still maybe has a little way to go overall. It's one of the reasons why I do like Earth Elemental, because it's just a big, dumb, beefy idiot that you can draw at any given point and slam on the board.
So the things is, right, so what's the plan? Well, it's quite complicated and hard to explain. That's Quest Shaman without Earth Elemental. You put it in, you're like, what's the plan? You hit them, and hit them hard. It's like, yeah, sounds like my kind of deck. Let's dive in.
You play Flesh Giant, that's all it is. You just play Flesh Giant.
We're diving into game number 5, the final game between these two players. The winner moves on throughout the tournament this week, where the loser is done for the week with the banking close to minimal points here. So big deal here for both these players, and it's ending in a Mage Mirror Subtle.
It is Frenetic, rightly irritated by his opponent's Incanter's Flow pickup. Also has Ice Barrier as well. The second Ice Barrier, as I mentioned, you might as well delete that card from hand because it is not getting played this game. The first Ice Barrier will never be activated, so that's a very dead draw. But overall, very, very strong opener. Just having the flow and 1 guaranteed Frost Spell, which is, you know, one of the big sticking points of the matchup, is getting those Frost Spells cast. I think Leta's got off to a much stronger start overall.
And honestly, because we didn't really go into it too much, just a reminder of Frenetic's list. He is not running Apexis Blast, he is not running Gadget Zan, he is running what I will call last week's list of 1 Thief and 1 Devolving Missiles. So they're the sort of 2 floating slots that you see filled in his version. So has some flexibility with that 1 Thief, but Devolving Missiles in this matchup isn't really going to make much work.
What to do? What to do?
Leta in the tank this turn. I think he's considering whether to just play Fire Sale as a fire spell, because that's what is needed on his quest, and that's exactly what he ends up doing. Which I think is valid, right? He considers himself to have enough card draw in hand right now that he's not going to need to cycle the Fire Sale, and he has Arcane Intellect and Springwater locked up already.
I think that's reasonable.
I agree with that. Yeah.
This draw needs to be very good here from Frenetic, or at least the next turn's draw.
Yikes.
We've all been there,
Reiterate,
Frenetic, where you think, can I play a cramp session for 1 card?
Apparently you can, yeah. I was just going to say, to reiterate the point from when I was talking about the mulligans, or the opening hands at least, the double ice barrier is kind of double punishing for Leta's deck, right? Because not only does the second ice barrier, thank you game, not only does the second ice barrier stick in hand and never get played, he also has incredibly dead cards in his deck with Arcanologist, because not only do they not draw anything anymore, there are also minions in the Mage Mirror that he just doesn't want to play. But there would have been worlds where he would play these to draw Ice Barrier and then, you know, shoot a Brain Freeze at his own Arcanologist. But right now, he can still do that, and that's great. It progresses the quest, but he's missing out on that card draw, which is obviously irritating.
Still in a better position than Frenetic to an extent, though, because these mini objectives you set in every deck you play, right? Like Flow's been cast, great. Card draw is in hand, great. Ways to proc other freeze spells, even though it's not perfect, the Arcanologist does the job, great. Whereas Frenetic is on that close your eyes and hope for a couple of fireballs plan here with Mask of Cthulhu already in hand.
So does Runed Orb go face here looking for a fire spell? He's very bottlenecked by fire spells right now, right? Otherwise, he has enough targets with his Arcanologists to go like Arcanologist, First Flame and Arcanologist.
Oh, there we go.
Freeze the Arcanologist. Yeah, that'll do very nicely. So now he can do this one, and now next turn he has Ignite plus Arcanologist Brain Freeze again to line it all up. Actually, he still needs the fire on this part of the quest as well, right? So he will need one more fire spell to get there.
Mask?
Ooh, apparently not.
Oh, he has a one thief in the list.
He's only going back up to 6 mana anyway, right?
Oh, so, of course, yeah.
Never going to end that turn on Mask.
Yeah. I'm a little bit surprised. I thought all this could have been done next turn. Mainly because the no minion thing doesn't really count when your opponent's getting close to completing the final phase of the quest, right? Because there'll be a 7/7 on the board.
True. Oh, Hot Streak was a lovely draw here. That means that he can now... Wait, Leta, but that... No!
Oh, yeah. Shake of the head.
Oh my goodness, no, that could be a colossal throw in this game. Because now he's missing the Frost spell for his final completion.
Yeah. Evocation
That's
time.
devastating because he's out of Brain Freezes. Oh no, he needed. So what he wanted to do is Hot Streak first, then play the minion, then Brain Freeze the minion, and then Runed Orb face, Ignite face. That completes quest.
Yep.
He just did it in completely the wrong order.
Deep freeze.
I mean. All right, he's living the dream. He's living the dream. Evocation, bail us out of this mess, please. Oh no. Oh no, Raven.
Fireball face go. Spurn plans back on.
Oh, it's a disaster.
Oh,
it's a disaster, and Leta knows it's a disaster. Suddenly, Frenetic's just back in business. Oh,
Fireball, Runed Orb.
Ignite again!
Oh no. Oh yes, for Frenetic, I guess. I'm not taking sides, I'm just saying.
And he hasn't completed the quest, so he can't put a 7/7 in play to tank the Mask! Fireballs the own face, and that is one of the hardest throws you are likely to see in European GM. You know, we are very proud of our standard of play over here in the European region. You don't see stuff like that too often, but that is an absolute gift to Frenetic. There is no other way to phrase it.
Yeah, it's that was a real tough one. Mainly because, and it sounds like sort of half defending this, but with the quests, and especially this one with, you know, you have to do 3 of these and 3 of those and 3 of those, like, it is quite easy to just blank out. I mean, I've just blanked out on multiple things today. I'm just making up games of Hearthstone, so I'm one to talk. But it's a single lapse of concentration just ruins the game, right? And you saw that, and as soon as he made the play, it was just, he knew, and it was done. And you saw just from the camera and the fact that it was just, okay, draw, see what it is, no, self-fireball, game's over. Because he knew he was under that much pressure. He knew he was that far away from the quest that he worked his way throughout the game. So really tough loss there for Leta, which is a shame, a bad way to lose a game there. But he's got plenty of time in Grandmasters, so he'll just have to come back stronger, not next week, but the week after.
Yeah, I mean, there are just a lot of moving parts with the quest decks, right? It's why you'll see people, particularly high-level players, we kind of develop this tick where we're obsessively checking quest at all times just to make sure that we're not doing anything wrong.
You see the screen go grey all the time on Spectator because they're constantly hovering it,
It's just this whole extra factor that you're just not used to accounting for, and sometimes just one thing or the other can slip your mind. We see sequencing mistakes, minor sequencing mistakes that don't punish people that hard, all the time, right? Like, it's relatively common. It's just that if you do it in a situation like that, it's going to immediately come back and bite you, and you're going to lose the series, and that's exactly what happened to Leta there. But that means Frenetic is going to march on forward for FC Barcelona Esports. Of course, Barcelona are in desperate need of some W's right now, so I'm happy for them, of course. And Bunny Hopper coming out of that group as the winner. Again, memes aside of him being a debuting Grandmaster, he's of course one of the greatest players that we have in the European region, and great to see him back on top, as I believe his team, Team Liquid, are in the team league that they are currently playing in the Chinese region.
Yeah, doing extremely well recently. And also just a final note on Frenetic, another, a good week for him here, getting out of the group phase, going to make it into that top 8 minimum. And remember, he won last season. He starts on +5 points than everyone else.